Everybody, this is Dr. David Jockers, and today we're talking about how to follow a cyclical ketogenic diet. And so, a cyclical ketogenic diet is when we cycle in and out of ketosis. So, we're going to go through really what the benefits of a ketogenic diet are, how to follow a ketogenic diet, and what the best strategies would be for cycling in and out of a ketogenic diet in today's presentation. Now, if you're not familiar with me, my name is Dr. David Jockers. I am a doctor of natural medicine, and I have a specialties in high performance and the ketogenic diet. And this is my wife, Angel, my little boys, David and Joshua. And so when we look at the ketogenic diet, what we know is that most people are sugar burners, where they're eating a high carbohydrate diet, and those carbohydrates are breaking down into the compound glucose. And basically, when that happens, when glucose breaks or when glucose elevates in our bloodstream, our body produces insulin. And insulin is a fat storage pro-inflammatory hormone. Its job is to get sugar or glucose out of the bloodstream and into the cells. And then the body uses that for energy. So when glucose levels rise, insulin's up. When that environment is present, the body's going to use glucose as a primary energy source. However, on a ketogenic diet, it is a high fat, moderate protein, low carbohydrate diet. And when the blood glucose lowers and insulin lowers, the body starts to break down fatty acids. Well, it'll either use fat from the diet, from what we consumed, or stored fatty acids that are on our body. And what happens, basically, the body mobilizes these fats, these triglycerides, brings them to the liver converts them into ketone bodies. These ketones are water soluble. So whereas fats are fat soluble, the water soluble compounds are able to easily pass through the cell membrane, get into the mitochondrial membrane, and be utilized for energy. And so ketones produce 10 times more cellular energy than glucose. And on top of that, they produce significantly less free radicals and oxidative stress. So they're a great energy source for the body. And what are the benefits of converting from burning glucose to burning ketones? Well, it's going to reduce inflammation in your body. It's going to improve your body's ability to burn through stored fats. You're going to be leaner. You're going to have better lean body tissue. You're going to have better brain function, mental clarity, and sharpness, because the brain is, very, very susceptible to blood sugar imbalances. When blood sugar is going up and down, it's going to cause more inflammation and damage to the brain tissue. When we're using ketones protect the brain from oxidative stress. They also turn on different genetic switches that help the brain to produce, basically different neuroproteins that are associated with higher brain activity, particularly something called brain-derived neurotrophic growth factor, BDNF, which helps with synaptic development and neurotransmitter formation. So you just feel more mentally clear and sharp. You have much better energy because your body is really using a very efficient energy source. It also, because it reduces inflammation in the body, it's also reducing inflammation along the skin. So your skin's going to be clear. You're going to have less blemishes, acne, eczema, things like that. You're going to have reduced cravings because you're going to be very sensitive to a hormone called leptin, because your body's using fat as its primary energy source. You get leptin sensitive, and leptin signals satiety. So you get a lot more satiated. And really, when you keep your blood sugar stable, that's, a natural effect of that is going to be reduced cravings, as opposed to when the blood sugar is going up and down with meals. You're going to notice you have more cravings, and you're going to want to snack a lot more. Also, on top of that, this is one of the most exciting things, is that actually helps your body produce more mitochondria. Mitochondria in the cell is really what produces cellular energy. So we're able to produce more mitochondria. It's a stimulus that the body recognizes when we are converting to ketones and using ketones. So we get more mitochondria, which means better cellular energy production, and again, less free radicals and inflammation. So you have better aging, right? More successful aging and reduced risk of chronic disease. So very powerful benefits. And we're looking at a ketogenic diet. There's really three main ways. Standard ketogenic diet is really a very low carb diet, consistently, like basically every day. And typically it's going to be 20 to 50 grams of net carbs per day, or roughly 5 to 10% of your caloric intake coming from net carbs. And net carbs basically are total carbohydrates minus fiber. So if you looked at the nutritional information on something you were eating and it said 10 grams of carbohydrates, 7 grams of fiber, then that would be 10 minus 7 equals 3. So it would be 3 grams of net carbs. So for most people, keeping your carbohydrates in that 20 to 50 range will help your body start to use ketones. Okay, now a cyclical ketogenic diet is basically where you're following the standard ketogenic diet, but you are adding in a higher carbohydrate day. What is a higher carbohydrate day? It's going to be more than 50 grams of carbs, of net carbs. So it could be 80 to 100 grams of net carbs, which is typically what I will recommend when somebody wants to do a cyclical ketogenic diet. And you do that once a week or once every 2 weeks. You kind of figure out what the best scenario is for you, where you feel best. And there can be a lot of benefits to that, and we'll go through that as we go on. And then finally, there's the targeted ketogenic diet, where basically you are consuming a low carb diet throughout the day, but right before you exercise. Okay, and this is typically done for for endurance athletes, or let's say a basketball player who's going for a 2-hour practice, right, or football player or something along those lines. They're going to take 20 to 50 grams. The longer your training session, okay, the more carbohydrates you want to consume in the targeted ketogenic diet. And so basically they're going to take that about 30 minutes to an hour before exercise, before the high intensity activity. If it's something that has fiber in it, you'll want to take it about an hour before. If it's low fiber, like a drink, then you take it, 15 to 30 minutes sometimes before your practice. That way it gets into the bloodstream right away, so you're able to burn that up and use that for immediate fuel for your body when you're doing high intensity exercise that's anaerobic in nature, meaning you don't have the presence of oxygen when you're doing that, like sprinting, for example, would be an example of that. Okay, so one great approach with the ketogenic diet is really incorporating intermittent fasting with it, because intermittent fasting takes stress off the gut. It also, it's basically time restricted feeding. You can consume your meals in a 6 to 8 hour eating window. So if you started at 10 a.m. And you finish at 6 p.m., that would be an 8-hour eating window, followed by a 16-hour cleansing window where you're not consuming, or fasting window. This helps to heal your gut because you're taking stress off of your digestive system. It reduces inflammation in your body, helps stimulate the production of ketones, improves insulin and leptin sensitivity, as well as increasing growth hormones. So when we're consuming food, growth hormone is going to go down, insulin is going to go up. Even if it's low carb food, we're naturally going to stimulate some insulin when we eat. When we're fasting, we're going to have growth hormone rising. Okay, particularly after about 12 hours of fasting, we start to see higher amounts of growth hormone, which is an anti-aging hormone. Helps your body to burn fat, helps build lean body tissue, some muscle tissue, bone tissue, helps strengthen the immune system. Really good for the skin. And finally, you become a fat burner, right? So it helps switch your body from burning sugar to burning fat as your primary fuel source. So intermittent fasting is awesome, great for anti-aging, and it really works hand in hand with the ketogenic diet. Fasting is so much easier when you're on a ketogenic diet. And when you're on a ketogenic diet, and really, basically one of the best ways to get into ketosis is utilizing intermittent fasting, because it just makes it easier for your body to use ketones as an energy source. So really good for, all the same reasons really that a ketogenic diet is good. So we want to incorporate that in. And a common question I get is, who shouldn't be doing a ketogenic diet? And so I don't recommend it for women who are pregnant or breastfeeding. Now, they can still be on a lower carbohydrate diet, so they don't need to be on like a moderate or high carb diet. I don't recommend that. But their goal shouldn't be to produce ketones and use ketones as a primary energy source. So they'll want to have a little bit of more carbohydrates, and typically from healthy sources like root vegetables like beets, carrots, sweet potatoes, yams, yucca, squash, different things like that, all really good nutrient dense sources of carbohydrates. Berries would be another one. Okay. Children and teenagers. So actively growing kids. The goal again isn't to be in ketosis when you're growing fast. However, again, a lower carbohydrate diet is going to be better. They're going to be less inflamed, and their body may produce some of these ketones and utilize them from time to time. Women with irregular menstrual cycles, so having a lot of PMS symptoms, things like that, I don't make that a goal right away. Again, that can be a goal down the road once we get that under control. Same thing with extreme adrenal fatigue and poor thyroid function. I don't make it an immediate goal. However, it can be a goal down the road once we get blood sugar stable and the adrenals more balanced. And then high level athletes, it's not necessarily a goal, although we talked about using the targeted ketogenic diet, which can be very effective for athletes so they can get the benefits of ketosis, but at the same time, not lose their performance benefits, because there's a lot of athletes that have tried using the ketogenic diet, and especially when they're first trying to keto adapt, their overall performance goes down significantly. So the targeted approach can be very effective for that. Okay, so let's jump into the cyclical ketogenic diet and how to utilize this. And this is really what our ancestors did. Our ancestors' goal wasn't to be in ketosis. They were in ketosis often, but that was because they didn't have access to food. They would have times of famine. And then they would also have times of feasting when food was abundant. And so really a cyclical ketogenic diet is in a sense, it's basically a feast and famine cycle. So how do you do this? Well, basically for 5 days a week, you're going to do 3 to 4 low carb keto meals, okay? Or you could even just do 2 if you're incorporating intermittent fasting. So basically, you're going to consume a ketogenic diet 4 to 5 days a week, okay? 1 to 2 days a week, you're going to do some higher carb, higher protein foods, okay? So for some people, they need 2 days a week of higher carb up days, right? So like every third day, right? For others, it's once a week. And usually I have people start with trying it just once a week and see how they feel, okay, and see how their blood ketones or if they're using a ketonics breath meter, how that works, what that's showing on the test results. And then 1 day where they do an intermittent fast from carbs and proteins. So on that 1 day, they can have like a tablespoon of coconut oil or grass-fed butter, or they can have butter coffee, something along those lines, but they're going to restrict from carbohydrates and protein during that day. And really for about 24-hour period. If they want to, they can do a 36 or longer if they want to fast that long. But really, 24 hours is easy, actually, believe it or not, once you get a little more keto adapted, where you're going from dinner one night to dinner the next night. Okay, so during the day, you're just basically consuming a lot of fluids, water with maybe some salts, herbal teas, maybe some diluted broth. And you're also going to be doing possibly some butter coffee like we talked about, something along those lines. And so that's typically how you'll do it. So you do that for about 4 weeks, kind of see how you feel with it. Okay. And then if you're feeling good, then you can go into the intermediate phase where you're going to actually do a longer fast, okay, on a regular basis, right? So 14 to 16 hour fast. So what would that look like if you finish dinner at 6 p.m.? Okay, you wouldn't eat anything until 8 a.m. the next morning. That would be 14 hours, or maybe 10 a.m. The next morning. So that would be 16 hours. Okay, and again, you're doing 1 day of higher carb, higher protein foods, and then 1 day of intermittent fasting from carbs and protein. Okay, so you do that weeks 4 through 8. So you're kind of seeing, hey, how does it feel to go 1 day and to do a longer intermittent fast in the morning? Do a 1 day, all day fast, and 1 day of higher carb or protein foods. Okay, and then the advanced phase is where you do a longer intermittent fast. Okay, you may even go up to 18 to 20 hours on a daily basis and eat all your meals in like a 4 to 6 hour eating window. Let's say 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. or 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. or 12 p.m. to 6 p.m., for example. So that's where you're having your lower carb meals in that period of time. Again, 1 day a week, you're doing higher carb, higher protein foods. 1 day a week where you're doing a 24 to maybe even a 36 hour fast. Okay, so that's basically how you're going to do it, and that's how you're going to follow this sort of a diet. A lot of people notice that they feel good when they basically do the carb up day, either before or after the fast day. Okay, so they'll do the fast day, then follow it up with the higher carb day. Okay, the kind of the feast day, and again, teaching the body that it's, in a state of famine, there's a lot of good benefits that come from that, including, the production of ketones, right? All the benefits that come with ketones. But if the body is in a prolonged state of famine, then that can actually be very challenging. Thyroid levels usually will lower, sometimes will overproduce stress hormone, and deal with adrenal fatigue. So cycling through a period of feasting where food is abundant just tells the body, hey, food's abundant, so we're good. Make more thyroid hormone, make the adrenal hormone, and we don't get those sort of I guess you could say, kind of hibernation type of characteristics developing, right? So it's like when food's restricted, it's almost like we go into hibernation. Our body may, not everybody's like this, but our body may go into more of a hibernation mode where we start to downregulate thyroid hormone and adrenal hormone, making us more tired, right? So then we're more tired, we want to sleep, things like that. And so basically cycling in those carbs will help our body from time to time. Okay, just saying, hey, you know what? Food is available, and we don't need to do that. We don't need to downregulate thyroid and adrenal hormones. So it can be really, really effective. This is pretty much what I do on a regular basis. Now, when I add in more protein and carbs, it's not like I go excessive amounts. Again, I still want to be in a lower carb diet, but usually it's around 50 to 80 grams of carbs on that day. And it's from healthy sources, like I was saying before, or maybe higher amounts of protein, where typically I'm around 80 to 100 grams of protein on a daily basis, and I may go up to 150 grams or so of protein, which then will turn into glucose and raise my blood glucose. So anyways, that's really how to apply it. And then just, it's always important to apply these 10 key ketogenic strategies. We want to make sure we're staying hydrated between meals. We want to practice intermittent fasting, even if it's just 12 hours between dinner and breakfast. That's a really good place to start. We want to make sure we've got a lot of salts in our diet. Salt your food well, because when you're on a ketogenic diet, you excrete more sodium. You need those salts. You need the trace minerals. You should be getting regular exercise, getting out and moving your body, even if it's just taking a walk on a daily basis. It's so important to move your body. And that really goes hand in hand with, the body's ability to reduce blood glucose and keep it stable. We want to make sure we've got good bowel motility. So a lot of times people on a ketogenic diet reduce their bowel motility. They get more constipated. So we want to make sure that hydration and the salts are going to really help with that. And also consuming a lot of non-starchy vegetables can help for the fiber that's in those. Okay, don't eat too much protein unless you're trying to cycle out of a ketogenic diet. Usually you want to keep your protein levels between 0.8 to up to 1.4 grams per kilogram of body weight. Okay, so if you weigh 150 pounds, then that's roughly, I believe, about 68 kilograms of body weight. So 0.8 to 1.4 is going to be somewhere around like 50 to 100 grams of protein. Okay, obviously, if you're inactive, you're not doing strenuous exercise on a daily basis, it's going to be better for you to stay around 50 grams. If you are doing weight, especially weight training, you're going to want to get up in that 80 to 100 gram range, like I do on a typical basis. Okay, choose carbs wisely. So again, you really want to keep your carbohydrate levels low, so you're restricting the amount you're consuming, unless you are on a higher carb day, a carb up day. Use MCT oil whenever possible. Why do we want to use that? Because that actually, MCT oil is going to turn into ketones quickly in our body. So it's a great way to get ketones up. And you can do this. You can use MCT oil when you're on your higher carb days too, to keep ketones circulating in your system. Keep stress levels down. If you're under a lot of stress, that's going to affect your blood sugar and your ability to produce and utilize ketones. So very important to keep your stress levels down and balanced, and really focus on good sleep. If you're not sleeping well, it's almost impossible to get into and stay into ketosis. So really, really try to prioritize good sleeping habits. Okay, and what I found is, these are really some of the key things that people are missing when it comes to following their ketogenic diet. They're not hydrating well. They're not using a really good salt and mineral-rich foods. And a great supplement to use is magnesium. So really, really want to consume a lot of good water. I recommend basically about an ounce of water per pound of body weight. So if you weigh 150 pounds, trying to consume 150 ounces of water daily. It will just help you move your bowels. It will help your cellular energy production. I mean, just is so good. Now, here's the problem. If you're consuming water without minerals, then you can deplete your minerals. So that's why it's so important to get good quality salts. I recommend a Himalayan sea salt, like this sort of pink salt, or Redmond's real salt is good. Celtic sea salt's another good one. Just tons of minerals in there. Really, really good for cellular energy production and for proper water and fluid balance in and out of the cells. So really good. And then magnesium, getting enough magnesium. Most people are not getting enough magnesium. And so I'm a huge fan of using magnesium supplements, okay, because it's just so good for blood sugar stability, for enhancing cellular energy production, balancing and calming your nervous system. And so the kind of magnesium supplement I'm a big fan of is magnesium L-threonate, which is a form that crosses the blood-brain barrier, and that's what we use in our brain calm magnesium. And so simply doing a scoop of this in water on a daily basis, particularly like in your stressful periods of time during the day, like mid-afternoon or maybe mid-morning, is going to really help your body adapt to stress better. If you're having trouble with sleep, doing this in the evening, like right after dinner, maybe an hour and a half after dinner, can be really, really helpful for helping your body wind down as well. So adding in the brain calm magnesium and the good salts and lots of hydration and water, really good strategies for helping you be successful with a ketogenic diet or a cyclical ketogenic diet approach. So ultimately, going back to the benefits of ketogenic diet, I mean, it's so amazing for brain function, blood sugar stability, reduces inflammation, which means pain and aging and things like that in our body. Just so good at that, helping you lose weight and reducing your risk of chronic disease. And if you want just more of a detailed program for how to follow this, that's why I have my ketogenic diet e-course, which you can check out on drjockers.com under the programs header. And it really provides everything you need to be successful and follow this ketogenic diet to the T. Lots of video instruction and all kinds of goodies, recipes, and lots of good stuff to help you be successful with this. So hope you guys enjoyed today's training, and we will see you on a future YouTube training. Bless you guys.